Joining us now, writer at large and host of the Bulwark podcast and MSNBC political analyst, and back with Tim Miller, and back with us is Punchbowl News co-founder and MSNBC political contributor Jake Sherman. So, Jake, the Democrats are currently just tearing at themselves over what to do with Donald Trump. Chuck Schumer has been trying to explain his vote, saying that if he didn't vote to stop the government shutdown, the government would have been torn apart by the Republicans. They would never have it reopen again. Is that what you're hearing from other Democrats now, or are they starting to understand his vote, or is there still a lot of anger there?
There's all the above. There's still a lot of anger there. He is mostly right, but they bungled this, Katie, from the get-go, from the initial stages of the negotiation over government funding, as we talked about earlier in this hour. They had no they had no gettable ask. Like, Republicans were very good when they were out of power at asking for things to make the other side squirm. You know who else was very good at that? Was Nancy Pelosi. Get something that you could get a win for your vote. They didn't do that. They tried to say, we want to put handcuffs, as they called it, on how Donald Trump spends money. That was never going to go anywhere. So once they were also gambling, they were also betting the House would not be able to pass this bill. Once the House passed this bill, Schumer had no hand. He had zero hand to play. And he gave off the impression that he was going to fight. He said the Republicans don't have the votes to proceed with this bill. Of course, that's just a statement of fact. They have 53, they need 60. He led people to believe that A, he could fight, and B, that he was going to fight. Neither of those were true. Now, let me just say this about Glenn Ivey and the other people calling on Schumer to go. Chuck Schumer, with all respect to Glenn Ivey, is a very nice guy and a very good politician. Chuck Schumer doesn't care what Glenn Ivey thinks, quite frankly. He's got a coalition of 46 Democratic senators who matter to him. Everyone else is noise. Now, the proof is in the pudding, right? He said on CBS Mornings the other day, Katie, to a very smart host, that he is the best at getting people elected. He is the best Senate Democratic leader there is. Like, the proof will be in the pudding, right? So we'll have to see how the rest of this Congress plays out. But he's not up until 2028, where he'll be 78 years old, and we'll see if he has another run in him.
That host had a really good researcher prepping him for that interview.
I knew there was someone else involved in this.
Tim, I wonder if, you heard Jake talk about the allies that Schumer has. I wonder if it matters that Nancy Pelosi doesn't seem to be backing him. Talking about getting something when you're making a negotiation. Here's what she said about Senator Schumer's decision.
You still have confidence in Senator Schumer to lead the Democratic caucus in the Senate. But for you,
I myself don't give away anything for nothing. And I think that's what happened the other day. We could have, in my view, perhaps gotten them to agree to a third way, which was a bipartisan CR for 4 weeks, in which we could have had bipartisan legislation to go forward. I'm an appropriator. Mr. Schiff is an appropriator and with the Appropriations Committee. They may not have agreed to it, but at least the public would have seen they're not agreeing to it. And then they would have been shutting government down, because we don't want government to shut down.
Tim?
Yeah, I'm going to defer to Speaker Emerita and to Jake, who have expertise on whether that strategy actually would have worked or not. I don't really know. I think what I do know is what matters politically, is the fact that she has modeled what Democrats are asking for Chuck Schumer, right? I think, which is to not be in a leadership role anymore. She stepped aside for Hakeem Jeffries, and I think that Democrats are yearning for somebody with more vigor, more vim, somebody that's ready to fight. Now, you can't beat somebody with nobody. We've seen this on a million Republican speaker fights before, so I don't know if Chris Murphy or Amy Klobuchar or one of these other people actually want to challenge Chuck Schumer. I think that's another question. To me, I just think my message to all of these Democrats on the Hill is, and Katie, you'll remember this from having covered Trump in 2015 and 2016. What did Republican voters say about Trump all the time? Anytime, establishment Republicans would complain about him, they'd say, but he fights. Like that became a cliche about Trump. Like, oh, Trump might have used to, he might have used to be a Democrat, or he might not understand the nuclear triad, but he fights. We know he's going to fight. And the Democrats need somebody that can channel that. They don't have to be Donald Trump, but they have to show that they're going to fight. That's what voters want. And
so who is that person, Tim? I mean, is it Chris Murphy? He's been putting out video after video on social media, trying to be out there talking to people directly in the place where they're consuming a lot of information. That's TikTok and Instagram and Twitter and whatnot. Is he the guy, or is it AOC? Who is it? Because, I mean, the Democratic Party will also say in polling that they don't want somebody far to the left. They want somebody more moderate. So AOC is a good fighter, but I'm not sure that her politics align with much of where the Democratic Party largely wants to go, or at least the Democratic Party that's looking to win over independents and people they might have lost to Donald Trump.
Yeah. I mean, again, maybe I have PTSD, but this just reminds me of what Republican voters were like from 2010 through 2016. I don't really think it's ideological. Trump was not far to the right, per se. He was far to the right on a couple issues on immigration and crime, but he also was, whatever you'd want to call him, in the middle or incoherent on foreign policy, on economic issues. So I think it could be anybody. I don't think it's along the ideological valence. I think it could be anyone that says, I am going to stand up and fight. Look at how much interest Jasmine Crockett has gotten over the last 2 months because she's been out there doing it, and Chris Murphy. Neither of them have a particular ideological valence within the party. They're just out there doing it. And the Democrats need leaders that are going to go out there and do it, and that can channel the passion of their own voters. And the legislative strategy is going to be very important on reconciliation. But besides that next budget and tax fight coming up later this year, a lot of this stuff is just in what kind of oomph you're going to put into it, what kind of passion you're going to put into it. And so, sure, it could be Chris Murphy. It could be anybody. But it's got to be somebody that decides that they're going to do it.
Jake, I'll give you the last word on this.
They had so just on the substance, they had a negotiation for a bunch of weeks. It didn't go anywhere. So what Pelosi is saying is right and wrong. She never gave up something for nothing. I agree with that. And I think leadership, especially in this building, is about managing expectations. And if these leaders, Jeffries and Schumer, went into this fight saying, here's what's like the universe of possible here, and we're going to fight for this. We're not going to be able to take this down. We're not going to let the government shut down, but we are going to secure this thing, whatever this thing is, then they would have been, or they could have been at least successful.